Welcome to the Social Work Rants podcast, providing a platform for social workers to share their stories. The podcast covers a wide range of topics, including mental health, social justice, policy, and the day to day realities of the profession. Season 10 will continue to focus on the intersectionality of mental health and finances. Hope you enjoy. Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of season 10 of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to the podcast. I appreciate all the love and support. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. Continue to follow on the podcast on social media, on Instagram at the Social Work Rants podcast. That is all one word. On Twitter X at Social Work Rants, or Facebook, aka Meta. Type in the Social Work Rants podcast, hit that like button, and of course the YouTube channel, hit that red subscribe button. And however you listen to podcasts, rate, share, download episodes, whether it be Apple, Spotify, you name it, the podcast is on it, and yet we trucking along. So I guess at this time, another fellow entrepreneur that connection through FinCon 2024 out in Atlanta, and I know FinCon's. I usually skip the summer, so like I'm ready for the fall. Even though spring hasn't started yet, uh, um, but FinCon 2025 in Portland, shout out to you, Darlene. What's going on? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Glad to have made the connections we did at FinCon. Definitely just glad to be here and provide insight and talk everybody's head off until y'all sick of hearing from me about the things that matter. You know.
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I know I've been on the focus on entrepreneurship and ways to make money for us social workers, because of course in grad school they don't teach any of this stuff. So we behind the eight ball, but so many social workers out here in these social work streets doing great things in the entrepreneurial space. So we gotta continue to have these type of conversations and just a variety of different things, because just doing clinical work, we're not going to get wealthy just based on that. Not in 2025 anymore. The way
Not in
America's set up.
2025. Not in 2025. We have to be creative in 2025. Okay.
So for people who don't know who you are, just give a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Darlene Harris. I'm an attorney. I am an entrepreneur. I own my own law firm. Started that about 2 years ago. This summer will be three, which is no, this summer will be two. 2 years. We primarily focus on entrepreneurship, so helping companies, small to mid-sized startups, helping them really get their brands and businesses protected. We do that through contracts, contract review negotiation, um, trademarks, copyright, intellectual property, making sure that the things and ideas that you come up with, we make sure that they belong to you. And a big portion of my work is justice based. In addition to that, I do civil rights work, but I kind of try to blend that, especially in my business practice in working with mission based organizations. So the social work, right? So social workers, even those who are, let's say, starting a business on the side, right? Even though it's your side business, a lot of times those businesses can be really lucrative, right? And they can lead to
Mm,
better opportunity. So my goal is really to make sure that businesses, justice-based businesses, social organizations, things like that, that are helping the community in some way, that they have full protection. We've seen far too many times how we build something, somebody comes in and steals it, or we don't do it
mm.
the right way the first time, and now we're dealing with a bunch of legal troubles. And so my goal is to prevent that and minimize that as much as possible.
Wow, that's a lot. I know for myself. So the podcast name is actually Trademark. So that was it's.
Yay!
I think that was I got that last year, but it was.
it took a little while, and I was like, close my eyes, hit that payment. It's, it costs a pretty penny. And so, but no, it's worth it.
It is. It is.
when going on like over 200 episodes for 5 years, like you gotta.
Yes.
There's a lot of sweat, a lot of equity, and a lot of
Yes.
moving parts to record. So,
Yes.
and
Yes.
juggling multiple schedules all at the same time just to to get an hour.
Exactly. Let me ask you, how long had you been in business before you moved forward with trademarking?
I want to say like just over 3 years.
3 years? Okay. Okay. And I think, a lot of businesses that I deal with, it's usually between inception, the first year, and probably about the third or fourth year is when they come to me. And I always tell people the sooner the better,
Hmm.
right? Because luckily for you, when you went to trademark it, obviously it was available. But this now I am a trademark attorney and I made a foolish mistake in the pandemic. I started doing kind of like I wouldn't know if I would call it a blog or like a vlog, just like daily updates on what's going on, but like with a legal twist. So, for example, I would have covered like the YSL trial and stuff like that. And I was calling it legality, and people were loving it, loving it. And so, a
Mm,
couple weeks in, I said, let me do a search. And of course, the name was already taken, right? So, I was
mm,
like, well, let's start let's start all over. But I say that to say, like, imagine if, you keep going, right? Let's say you keep going, and then you look back, and or someone contacts you and sends you a cease and desist letter, and they're like, hey,
mm.
how much money did you make on this? That's actually my money. Those are really like the worst case scenario. So I'm glad that you had the forethought to go ahead and get the trademark while it was still available. Because that would have sucked. You say you did 500 episodes. Imagine if you did all those episodes and then had to like completely rebrand. That would have been terrible.
Yeah, going on 3 years in, and it's like by that time I think I had like probably little over 100, and just
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah, that would have been, I don't know. And maybe I get too attached to things that my law firm name is Power and Protection. And I'm
Mm.
like, I would be so mad if somebody else like had a trademark on that, because I love the name, and I'm sure you love the name of your podcast too.
Yeah, of course. The podcast has definitely helped others, which
Yes.
part of our code of ethics to give back to the profession, but also help me out on the personal, just just life, just keep trucking along, just release these episodes, part of my
Yeah.
own self-care as well. Um, so speaking of trademarking, so now obviously a lot of us may have a side hustle or might have their business related to social work, entrepreneurs, like what, like say they start. So you say the earlier the better to start off with a trademark. What if it's just an idea and like without really much traction yet? Like, should they still try to file, like even though they might not have like the money, because it does cost a pretty penny
Yeah.
to to trademark something. Like, what tips can you give
Yeah.
regarding that?
It does, and I think the way that I look at trademarks, and it's probably because of my understanding, most people know who Tabitha Brown is. She has products in Target. She does a lot of social media, and she talks about her journey to trademarking. And I think what happens a lot of times is we think we have this very little idea, right? And it's like, oh, it's just my business. Like I'm not making any money yet. Like I'm not gonna worry about it and all of that, right? But you don't know how quickly that can turn around, right? So when I started my firm, I immediately trademarked it. And the reason that I did that is because the longer you wait, the more likely it is that someone else will steal that name, right? And you keep putting it off. And then by the time you file, let's say, now you've built a brand name for yourself. People recognize this name and they say, oh, Power and Protection, that's Darlene, right? But now I have to completely use something else. So even if it's early stages, even if you're just starting, I tell people all the time, your trademark is an investment. It's not just a payment. And I say that because you can license your trademark. There are ways that you can make that money back way faster and way easier than people think.
Cool. So in turn, so people worried about like, dang, I ain't got the money, but I have this idea. I want to like, are there ways to like people can try to get the money in order to like, I know I have this idea, let me like put it out there, or I work with or have had coaches and entrepreneurs who like got an idea and they're like immediately contact they know an attorney is like, but immediately let me see if I can trademark this. Like what can like somebody who's just starting out, what can they do?
One thing you can do a very basic search of your own, right? Like you can do a really simple search on your own on the internet. And that is absolutely not going to cover all your bases, but at least it gives you a general idea of what's available to you, right? Um, if you're, I mean, there are a lot of companies that will do the search for you. So at least you know starting out whether or not it's taken. Um, but I think look at saving for the trademark costs as you would saving for getting your LLC or, anything else related to your business and prioritize it. Because even though it's this investment up front, it is a lot worse to invest 3,000, 4,000, $700 into this business that you don't own. I tell people all the time, if I came to you and said, "Boss, hey, I got this house I want to sell you. It's $5,000, but I don't own the deed on it. I don't own the deed and I don't own the mortgage. Would you give me $5,000?"
No.
Exactly. Exactly. So having your business and putting thousands of dollars into it when you don't have a trademark is very risky, right?
Mm,
And maybe nobody else will take that trademark. No, maybe nobody else will take that name. But do you want to put thousands of dollars into your business first and then realize later it was a mistake? Or would you rather say, hey, here's the 1,200 or 1,500 or however much, 2,000, however much the lawyer charges, and know that, okay, I can build this and keep investing and it's mine. So for someone who says, right now I just don't have the money, as soon as your business starts making money, put that on the list of priority with everything else. That is up there with your marketing expenses. That is up there with anything else that you're going to pay for in your business. That should be a high priority.
gotcha. No, that's good info. Now let's say like you have a name,
Mhm.
but you're doing a DBA, you're doing business as. That doing business as should that name be trademark as well?
Absolutely. And that's a good question. I'm glad you asked because when you're trademarking, you're protecting your brand recognition. For instance,
Mm,
my law office name is Law Offices of Darlene Harris. My DBA is Power and Protection. I don't use Law Offices of Darlene Harris, right? Nobody sees it, nobody knows it. So if I'm going to trademark something, it's going to be Power and Protection because that's what people are seeing, right? That is what my brand is recognized as. My brand is Power and Protection. So you always want to trademark what is the most public facing part of your business, right? So whatever people are seeing most, that's what you want to trademark. Now, later
mm,
you go back and trademark your company name, yes, but we're talking about budget, right? So we're talking about maybe someone who has to choose right now. I would tell them to choose. I would tell them to choose the one that is most used in the public eye because that's what you're protecting. For example, Coca-Cola trademark Coke and Coca-Cola, right? They don't trademark Coca-Cola, and they probably would, but the most important is Coca-Cola, not Coca-Cola Consolidated or Bottling Company.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, gotcha. Yeah, now I got some money to save up.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, like I said, nobody expects you to say, all right, I'm ready right now. I got $2,000. Let's go ahead and trademark, right?
Hmm.
Excuse me. We're talking about these allergies and they are just kicking my butt right now. Um, But just saving and treating it as the priority that it is will save you a lot of money in the long run.
Got
Yeah.
gotcha. No, that's good info because I know so many social workers out there doing so many good things, and
Yeah.
to go to court and have stuff like
Yeah. And programs. I think a lot of social
yeah.
workers, they're developing their own programs, their curriculums. Those things can be copywritten. Your curriculums that you draft up and write up, those can be copywritten. And copywriting, think about like the lyrics to a song, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can be copywritten. So trademarks are going to be like your brand name, your logo, your brand colors. Those can be trademarked, right? But the content of a curriculum, which I think, a lot of social workers, maybe they're building curriculums for organizations. Maybe they're doing different things that can be copywritten as well. So we don't want to forget about the value of copyrights in your business too.
Cool. That's good. Good info. Like you mentioned logos. I know there's a lot of AI stuff,
Yeah.
stuff on Canva. There's other
Yep.
AI apps like logo apps.
Oh, that's a great question.
So
I'm so glad.
could that be trademark? Like what's going on
That's
with that?
a great question. So, Canva is tricky. And reason being, a lot of please, 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 if you create a logo, a design anywhere, that's not like an actual person or a design firm, make sure that you're reading the terms of use and privacy policy, because a lot of times they say what you create on here, we own. Right? And a lot of people don't realize that. So if I go on Canva and I create a logo and then I download that, go trademark that, Canva can say, hey, our terms of service and our policy says that we own that. You don't own that. And
Mm,
so, yeah, you can use those things. And I can't speak for every single company, that allows
mm, mm-hmm.
that does it, but a lot of companies that have those types of design features, you want to make sure that the terms of use and the privacy policy actually allow you to own what you're creating on there. Because it's gonna get super tricky with AI. AI is
Yes.
gonna, yeah, I'm glad you asked that because AI is really gonna change a lot of things. So while there may be some that, you own the work that you create, I would make sure that whatever you're using, that's the case, that they're authorizing you and allowing you to own what you're creating on their platform.
Gotcha. Now you mentioned social justice and things like that, and that's part of what we do in the field as well. And a lot of social justice just within the last 5 years. We remember way before that, but coming since we in that 5 year
Yeah,
anniversary of pandemic, and now
yeah,
obviously we all the George Floyd and a number of other unarmed African Americans that were killed during the time, even like right before that, and now we have the new administration round two, and
yeah,
doing way more anti
yeah,
DEI stuff, doing just a lot of everything he said he or planned to he's doing. So
yeah,
like how can like we like combat that? How like our rights seem like every day has been like less and less, and we barely had that
yeah,
many. Depending
yeah,
on our color of our skin, like we definitely
yeah,
like be like
yeah,
less and less. So it's like what
yeah.
how can we like combat that? How can we help like our clients? We have a lot of documented individuals that we work with. Like how can we support them and help them? So like what can we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I have a lot of answers. Um, I have plenty of answers. So I think that, one thing we can do is we can make sure that we are taking care of our community, right? This is going to be a really tough time for us as a community. It's going to be a very difficult time, for for immigrants, for a lot of people. And I think, I read a lot of bell hooks, I read a lot of Angela Davis, and I think we really have to focus on community and taking care of each other the best we can, because it's going to be an exhausting time. It's going to be a trying time. It's going to be a time where we have to make a conscious decision to take care of ourselves, because every 10 minutes, not maybe every 5, it's a breaking
Mm,
news alert from this president, right?
mm,
There's
mhm,
something crazy going on, and that can really be a mental warfare if we allow it to be. So I think with, particularly with social workers, you focus on what you can do. Everybody has something that they can contribute, right? If you're a chef, you can give out meals to the homeless. The homelessness is going to skyrocket. And I'm sure
mhm,
it's already going up. It's going to skyrocket because the cost of living is skyrocketing, right? The cost of eggs is not going down, it's only going up, right? So,
mm,
you know, the things that were once easily accessible, if he's talking about getting rid of a lot of social justice programs, right? We're going
mm,
to need our neighbors, we're going to need our family, we're going to need community, we're going to need our friends. And so, my number one answer to that, what can we do, is be a good member of your community. My second answer to that, and when I say be a good member, contribute in the ways you can. Everybody can't be a lawyer, everybody can't be a social worker, right? So they don't have access to directly impact the way that we do, but you do have the option and the access to contribute to the people around you, right? Who may need that support. And I think a lot of times we're so busy looking so far outside of our own community that we miss the opportunity to serve people who are right next to us. Um, so I think that's number one. I think two, getting engaged in your local politics. Get engaged. A lot of the things that we complain about that we're unhappy with are local politics, right?
mhm,
A lot of people don't realize that your judges, your local judges, your district attorney, your city councilman, your commissioner, your board of education. These are the people that matter in your city, right? So first we focus on your city and your county, and then we go state, right?
mm,
Funding
mm,
to teachers, because if they're talking about we're going to make this a state by state thing, then the person that's leading your state is super, super important. So go to these meetings, go to your local community meetings, tell these people how upset you are, you're pissed off that they're doing this, hold these folks accountable. We vote them in and then we walk away, right? But they said they were going to do these things. Are we holding them accountable to that? Are we looking at how they're voting on the record and what their platform versus what their platform was or is when they ran for office, right? So yeah, we have 4 years of this man, but in 2 years we're going to have local elections. Are you going to be there to vote for your county commissioner? Are you going to be there to vote for your city councilman, for your state house representative? If you walk up to most people on the street today, they don't know who their elected official is in their county, right?
mm,
But that is extremely important to our day-to-day life, extremely important to our expenses. So, and then my number 3 thing would be control what you can, right? There are things that we can control, and there are plenty of things that we can't, right? Right
mhm,
answers to Donald Trump is not going to change anything, but it might to your state house representative, right? It might to your board of education, right? And so there are a lot of ways I think that, and the last thing I would say is remain. It sounds cliche, but remain hopeful, right? Like I had the opportunity to hear Angela Davis speak a couple months ago, and either last month or a couple months ago. Tom is flying, um, and she talked about how we don't always realize how far we've come, but not in the traditional sense, right? Not in the sense of
mm,
like, oh, segregation's over, yay, but in the sense that like she was saying she was with her cousin and he had just got out of jail and somebody said, "Welcome home, congratulations." And maybe 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people would have looked at him and demonized him. They would have looked at him as this dirty, raggedy criminal. And what did you do to put yourself in jail? So we've made strides in our community. And I think remaining hopeful that this is a scarily dark time. I mean,
mhm,
it's a scarily dark time to be who we are, to be a Black person, to be a person of color, to be an immigrant, it's a scary time. I think a lot of people are talking about leaving and actually will probably do it, right? So I think there is a lot we can do, but also taking care of yourself so that we can get through this, because we'll get through it.
No, yeah, I mean, sure, just to look, just and I've done some Zoom calls as well, just to see like ways to leave the country. Like what do you need, like in terms of like visas or kind
Yeah,
of like different stuff, just to educate myself of what that would look like.
yeah,
I mean, for me personally, a lot of bad has to happen for on a personal level for me
yeah,
to do. All right, I'm out.
yeah, yeah,
But you know, because I obviously got family to still like
yes,
care for and support and stuff like that, and I can't just like
yeah,
get up
yeah.
and leave and
So you're
like
stuck. You're stuck. So you got
it,
to make the best with what you got. You got to make do what you
yeah,
got right now.
yeah, exactly. Um, it's funny you mentioned like community and dark time for us, black and brown folks, and going back to election night and the days forward and seeing for myself, like seeing like, let's blame the Latinos, and like
Yeah,
immediately, like I like,
yeah,
how Instagram you put notes or whatever, like I like, this Latino voted for Harris. Just makes now you're not coming at me, and
like at least
you're
you
not
got to
you're not generalizing my people, like, and we got to see who within our group, because I think
yeah,
a lot of people were like, for I don't know why, but like surprised that just as African Americans, Latinos were not a monolithic either. I think they caught a lot of
yeah,
people by surprise.
yeah,
And it's like, but then like you think about just the way the country is like, true, if Hillary didn't win, and a lot of that had to do with Russia messing up our elections, and she was at the time the most qualified at the time, like to think Harris is gonna win. Like,
yeah,
so it's like
yeah.
it's a lot that
Oh,
that's happening, and it's like as much as we work together, we could really take this country to a level not seen before on a positive level, not
absolutely,
and I know white supremacy has a lot to be like, always has us like butting heads instead of us like
absolutely,
working together. So it's and I still see that from time to time, and it was like, all right, can we like stop with the blame game? How can we in this together? Like kind of like we in the same kind of in the same boat.
absolutely.
We may have like different ways of getting there and different like agendas or what have you, but at the end of the day, we still got to deal with the orange man and
Yeah,
Elon and
yeah,
everybody else, like the Project 2025, and I did a whole episode about it. That's the reality is here. They're literally doing everything that's in that 900-page book, or
yeah,
trying to, and it's like we
yes,
to the point we may have to like get out of here and like be like us Americans be immigrants sort of in another country.
yeah, yeah. If they'll have us at this point,
Exactly, because
at this point, nobody want to.
national anthem getting booed in Canada, and it's like
Yep,
we are Trump causing all these trade wars and fighting, like
yep,
fighting everybody to the point where we U.S. citizens might get banned, like he was banning like all the other countries coming here. Like we gonna get banned,
yep, yep. And that like
nowhere to go.
it could happen. And I think, I think every community has a responsibility to look within their community, right? So I have a job to look within the Black community and say, where can we improve as a collective, right? But I think that white supremacy benefits from infighting within minorities, right? Within the minority cultures, right? So even within the Latin community, right? Like there's infighting within the Latin community, right? Different
Mm-hmm.
regions hate this and that.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is rooted. somehow in white supremacy, right? Same thing
Right.
with Black people, right? When we deal with colorism, and a lot of cultures
Mm,
deal with colorism, right? That is infighting within the community that is was put there by white supremacy, right?
mm,
And so I think the more we address our communities, and only we should be doing that, right? Only I should be addressing my community, and you're addressing your community, and we're holding each other accountable, right? I think we can get so I know we can get so far. I think that is their biggest nightmare. If every single set of minorities in this country banded together and said, "Oh yeah, we have this common thing that we need to combat of racism and white supremacy," I think the country would be in a much better place for sure. And I think it's interesting for me, growing up primarily up north in New York and New Jersey, and then moving to the South is very different, right? Because I had a lot more exposure to various cultures, right? Like when I went to
mm,
school, it was Black kids, you had Latino kids, we had everybody. We had Italians, we had like Indians, Haitians, everybody was at the
mm.
school. So I had a lot of exposure to things that I don't think a lot of people had, and they don't understand how well we could work together and how rooted some of our misunderstanding of other cultures is in white supremacy. And so it's really frustrating.
Yeah, even just so I live in Delaware, and just the natives, like, obviously there's been an influx of like New Yorkers, New Jersey, we got
Yeah,
DC, a lot of Philly,
yeah,
got Baltimore, there's even people from California moving into the state, and we're treated as like the outsiders, or
yeah,
we get to
yeah,
look like, oh, you from New York, and it's like, so like even just within that, and like
yeah,
I'm trying to, it's like, so anything like I do, like events or whatever I go to, like I gotta go back home, because like I can't make that like imprint within the
yeah,
state, and
yeah.
just because it's like I'm considered like
Outside,
the outsider coming
yeah,
in,
you're outside.
and there's a lot of gatekeeping, and it's like
Yeah,
you gotta know somebody, or you gotta work in the hospital, you gotta work in the school, you gotta like wo- work within the
yep,
systems to even know what's going on, because nobody promotes anything, and it's like literally like an election happened for mayor, and the mayor in my town, he's been the mayor for like over 30 years. You think there was like any postings or anything about like the
oh,
election day? Like, nope. there
that's
was
crazy.
there was like one post on like the Facebook group, the community Facebook group. That was it.
That is crazy. But that's what I'm saying about local elections, right? Like people don't care. They don't pay attention. They don't know the urgency is not there the same way. And all the elections matter, presidential, state, local, like everything matters, but we need to be a lot more invested in our local politics than we are. It's impacting us more than we realize.
No, of course. I mean, literally, like, I mean, Delaware just this year alone has had three governors, just the way the laws
Okay.
worked out. Like the governor resigned because he became the mayor of a city, and then like somebody took over for a couple of weeks, and then the new mayor started, the new governor started at the regular time he was supposed to. So it was like, and then we have like a new county executive. So you mentioned, counties, and so it's like all this stuff that happened, and people, I don't think realize that all this was like literally like happening, and it's like, all right,
Yeah.
can we, so we kind of like stuck in the middle of like
Oh
the
my goodness.
federal, like what they doing and what Trump is doing,
Yeah.
and then like we got new transition coming in the state and what they're trying to do. It is like every- everybody's stuck looking for resources, or like, all right, we need some money, and like weed is legal, but nobody wants to like enforce the law, to because we need that income, that tax income, but nobody wants to do it. So it's a whole hot mess down here.
So it's legal in Delaware.
Technically, in the books, is legal,
Okay. But nobody's like actually doing it like
right? Or they're taking forever with like FBI, like background checks, to because
uh,
for
uh,
like, because so you could get like medical, and like some of them are trying to transition to recreational, and it's taking forever. Like they can do like special background checks for that to happen, and it was
Okay.
like the state need the money like bad.
Yeah. Yeah, like let's get to the plot here. We need to
Exactly.
get to the bag here. Let's get to the plot. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's, that's going to be really interesting. In general, the legalization of cannabis and marijuana and all of that is it's going to be interesting to see how it impacts community overall. Um it's not legal here in North Carolina yet, but it is something I'm paying attention to as a potential practice area because I know
Mm,
there's a lot of red tape in it, and it's
yes.
interesting who ends up getting through that red tape and who doesn't, right? So
Mm,
if all of a sudden selling weed becomes a white man thing, right?
mm,
They're able to get through that red tape and do it legally, or and it's also expensive if I'm not mistaken too.
yeah, it is.
It's really expensive to be able to sell it legally. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, I think the licensing here was at least like $10,000.
Phew.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's like, and generally who has that money up front is not usually
Okay,
us.
ready to go. Yep. Yep.
so
Yeah.
so
That's going to be
so
interesting.
so I've been paying attention to that, and it's like kind of, come on, let's get it together. Like there's no
Yep.
reason for us to go like to Maryland or go to Jersey, go all the way to New York.
Don't need, don't need to do all that.
Where you can just tax it here and use that tax money to,
Oh,
because
yeah.
of our small towns, like we have what they call like referendums, so they like
Oh, yeah.
do like these tax, increase like the local taxes for, and obviously that money is going for the education
Yeah.
and to pay like the teachers more money. But I mean, I'm not no like economist or anything, but you kind of could use that marijuana money and not like tax the people more money. And there's been a lot of no's. So like
Yep.
these school districts are like, it's funny, even my local school district where I'm at too, they thought they they think they were all tough, right? And they're like, "Oh, we're going to pass this," and then the community was like, "Nope," and
See?
their heads were like literally like in circles. They're like, "Oh, what we gonna do now?" And they
Yep.
had to go back and like and fix
I
things up
love it.
and change the wording, and like it passed, but it was like
Yeah.
they
It
thought
has
like the
to be
first
done.
time around
Yep.
it was
Yep.
gonna
And
pass.
I love that because we do have a voice, and maybe we don't get all of what we want or exactly what we want, but you got to go change that. Now you got to go back, you got to do some work, change some words, and make it more, more what the community wants. So I think that's great. I love to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah. So it's a lot that's happening, and like, and it's just like locally. So we're talking about local stuff and how
Yeah.
it impacts local stuff. It impacts just the regular state, the whole state as a whole, and like we're generally small state in comparison to a New Jersey or
Yeah.
New York State and stuff like that. So it's like still, like I said, and affects us, like social work, what's happening in terms of local politics, how it affects like the work that we're trying to do, and
Yeah.
like everything that's happening with the Medicaid and the Medicare potential cuts, and like potential security cuts, and everybody's living longer, so that's just like ass backwards kind of thinking that they're
Yep.
doing. So it's like we're
Yep.
gonna be working more harder, and like we already like burnt out and still PTSD from pandemic that we still recuperating with, and it's
Yes.
just a lot.
I thought I was the only one, so it's good to know I'm not. I thought I was the only one. It's
You have no idea.
but it does not seem like 5 years ago, but we're still recovering, and I don't think people
Mm,
realize how much of an as a nation we're still recovering from COVID, and how much longer we will be recovering. I don't know that. I mean, the world is just forever changed by that. We'll
mm.
never go back to pre-COVID anything. The world is just forever changed by that.
Yeah, I think part of it is because people stopped talking about it.
Right.
It wasn't addressed at all on local, state, or national politics. It was just okay. It happened. take place, and it's like, all right, like let's
Yeah.
move on. We and not really talking about it how it should, and really like dive in and see like the real aftermath of everything, because people were already struggling before pandemic, and just pandemic came and took it to another level, and
Yes.
it's just a lot.
It is. It is. It is. And I think that's why a big part of my answer when you ask the question, what can we do right now, is take care of yourself. Is because we're still recovering from COVID. We're still recovering from 2020. We're still recovering
Hmm.
from George Floyd. We're still recovering from a lot of things from that presidency. We're recovering from a lot of things and a lot of disappointment. And I think if we take on too much too soon and too fast, we're gonna burn out, and
Hmm.
especially in work like social work, in work like what I do, anything where you're working with people and it's justice impacted or race impacted or juvenile impacted, it's
Hmm.
exhausting. It's a very high burden to navigate. If you're in social work, I assume you're a person that cares. You have a level of empathy, you have a level of um, wanting to help people, and we can take that on and it can burn us out, but we can't.
Hmm.
There's too much of the world and the culture that needs us right now to put ourselves through a burnout. And longevity is the game. Like he might be out in 4 years, but then who's next? Is it Vance? Like who's next? Like
Right.
we gotta be ready to, we gotta be ready to go for him or whoever's next. So I think self-care and pacing ourselves is really, really important.
If there'll be another 4 years, because maybe they might change the law and make him like he was able to run again. Like who knows?
Yeah, they've been talking about that. And I don't want to say nothing. I don't want to say anything is impossible, especially with him, because of how he moves with this complete
Right.
disregard for the law. Um, I think I'm more afraid of something worse, which is scary to say because it's like, well, what could be worse? And I'm like, there's,
Just watch an old episode of 24 and
yeah,
take ideas.
look, yeah, yep. I watched Paradise, which was really good, and I'm watching this stuff, and I'm like, it's scary times. So,
Mm,
we just have to take care of ourselves and be prepared for a continued fight for justice.
but I mean, no, he did quote unquote survive an assassination, two assassination attempts. So it's like, so I mean that, but still
That
still
hurts.
that's a real threat for any public official. So
It
like, for somebody like him, unfortunately, people didn't give him the benefit. I mean, certainly didn't give him the benefit of the doubt because of who he is. So like, and taking pictures, like instead of like somebody shoot you like in the
is.
head,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the last thing you're gonna do is like get right up and worry about your shoes and like taking pictures for you to be selling those pictures after that, and like, risking Secret Service lives, and it's
Yeah,
other
yeah,
people's
right.
lives, that the people that were there who witnessed that. And like,
Yes,
when I first saw the headline, I was like, oh snap. Like I was like,
yeah,
that's a worst case scenario because
yes,
of like Vance and who this it's the
yep,
way the civics work. Okay, if the president gets killed, vice president take over. If
yep,
he or she sucks, we stuck with
yep.
that. And if something happens to that person, then the speaker of the house take over. And the speaker of the house, he sucks right now. So it's like we're not gonna get any better. So you might as well deal
Like
with
a rabbit hole of terrible options.
deal with Cheeto and see what he does.
Rabbit hole of terrible, terrible options. Yes,
So
yes,
people don't realize that people don't like educate themselves, and it's like if people have these ideas, it only takes one
yep,
person willing to might not have anything to live that and do something crazy out of the box. But people have these ideas, so it's like we see it on TV. Like if somebody could come up with a whole plot, be it on TV, somebody in real life have this
yep,
like idea. They just need like the means, the funds, and like all this stuff. And look what happened like 9/11, like the
yeah,
the plan came out to perfection. So it's like people are really out there, like planning and doing this stuff. So it is real, and for me, that's a worst case,
Yeah.
scenario too, and like just everything that's happening, and like we got. I did want to ask about the student loans, being a lawyer, and I've seen a lot of stuff about you know the well, he, you know Musk take like looking in our data and like messing with our personal information and related to student loans, and like I didn't sign my promise, with this. So like is do people actually have a case like regarding like the student loans, and like okay, I did it with this servicer. I signed back in the day with this promissory note for this. Like I didn't sign up for any of the stuff that Elon's doing. Do people actually have a case?
Well, I don't do privacy law, so
Okay.
I'll give that disclaimer. I don't do privacy
Okay.
law, but I think that that's why Trump put him in the position that he put him in, because I think that and this is just me generally thinking, I think that what they will argue is that it was a governmental move, and he's a part of the government, and he can look into at least the federal loans. I know there's a lot of private loan servicers, so I don't know if he has access to that, but I think that's the way that they would position it. I think that myself as a person, as a lawyer and someone who's had student loans, I think there is a expectation of privacy to our personal information, that I would not be surprised if they have violated that expectation of privacy in the things that we've agreed to when we signed our note, for sure.
Mm. Yeah, I was just curious about that. 'Cause I did see a lot of stuff, at least initially, when Elon took over, and like a lot of stuff, and then the student loans came out. It was like, wait, you can't do this. Like we could, you should actually sue and like have our
Have our
student
loans
loans
forgiven.
forgiven
Now
and
I
all
have
this other
seen
stuff.
that, and I said I'm gonna look into that, because if I can get my loans forgiven, I'm on top of that. I'm all over that. I want to know how to get that done.
But then I heard that wasn't true, and stuff. So it's a lot of stuff
It
that's
doesn't.
out there. But
I don't know how true that is. I would be surprised, but I hope it's true, because I'm gonna be next to sign up to get my loans. I'm gonna be right behind you to sign up to get my loans forgiven.
when when you do, just check your credit report, because if it does get any discharge, your points will drop a few points. That's one of the negatives about having your loans forgiven and being taken out of your report.
It's all right. I'll take that over having to pay them off. I'll take a little bit of credit. I can rebuild the credit. But them loans, they can go ahead and take that. They can go ahead and take that.
I
I'm
know
gonna
that's
look
right.
into that. Look, I'm gonna look into that, and I'll have an update for you before you record your next podcast. So before your next podcast, you'll get to open with the findings of my search, because now I need to know for myself.
Well, where can people reach out to you if they they want to get a
Yeah.
trademark, or just general advice?
Yeah, if anybody needs legal help for your business, if you're a social worker and you're creating programs, or if you're a social worker and you're starting your business based on anything. Unfortunately, if you're someone who listens to the podcast and you're, wrongfully arrested by police, assaulted by police, you can also reach out to me. That's a big area of my practice as well. You can find me at Power in Protection. That's powerinprotection.com. You can find me on Instagram at Attorney Darlene Harris. You can find me on Facebook at Darlene E. Harris, and same for LinkedIn.
Cool. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for the convo. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I enjoy it myself. I always enjoy talking to like-minded people about the things that matter.
Absolutely.